Let's go ahead and talk about the fighting Curt Cignettis. Just kidding. The Hoosiers. It was an interesting spring game for IU playing on a Thursday night. I thought that was interesting. My in-laws almost went, but they weren't able to go on Thursday night, so that was unfortunate. But Sammy, what were some of the highlights and things like that you saw in the spring game for this brand new coaching staff that Curt Cignetti's brought in, and a lot of new faces, especially Kurtis Rourke coming in from Ohio to be the quarterback as well.
Yeah, so this was actually the first spring game IU had played since like 2019. They had a couple obviously COVID canceled one. They had a couple canceled because of weather, and then just Tom Allen stopped doing it the last 2 years. So it was nice to actually have a spring game. They did it so in Bloomington, that week is Little 500 week. If you don't know what it is, it's tabbed the greatest weekend in college. It's a bike race that kind of mimics the Indianapolis 500. It's a big frat and sorority deal. So big party weekend. That's why they did it on that Thursday night. Lucked out with the weather. It looked like it was going to get rained out, but the weather stayed away. They had a good crowd. It probably around 5,000 people, which is solid for Indiana football. And it's a definite culture change from Tom Allen to Curt Cignetti, and you could feel it at practice, and you could hear it and see it in his press conferences as well. When we've been at practice, everything is more efficient. They go from one drill to the next. There's no real music, and the same in the spring game. It was very game-like. Coaches were coaching. They didn't stop things to outside of setting the clock to 2 minutes to do actual 2 minute drill. There was no, hey, let's restart this. It was ones versus ones, twos versus two. They did keep score. So they did. I think defense, you got 3 points for a stop, 4 points for a turnover created, and 2 points if a safety happened. Which if a safety happens in the spring game, we got problems. So the final score was 34-25. The last touchdown was a great story. Drew Schaus, as a kid, he battled a lot of open heart surgeries, was born with a heart defect. So he came in. If you haven't seen it on social media, he scored that last touchdown. But yeah, you saw a lot of the new players. Kurtis Rourke ran with the ones, started off slowly, looked a little rusty, but picked it up towards the end of the game. And he was the quarterback when IU went into that 2 minute offense and needed the drive to win the game. Taven Jackson, who started the year last year, a couple games for IU, 4-star transfer from Tennessee, brother of Trace Jackson Davis, as well. Started the game 7 for 7, 90 yards and a touchdown, finished, I think the first two drives, 10 of 11, looked sharp early, did show some of that inconsistency that plagued him last year. Receivers look good. There's a very deep receiver room now with Elijah Surratt coming from JMU. You have a couple other guys, Miles Price from Ohio, who has worked with Kurtis Rourke.
I will
There's so
say
many
with
other guys.
Miles Price, I got him mixed up with Miles Rice coming in with basketball. I was like, wait a minute, hold on, is this guy a two-sport athlete? And I was like, oh, Price, not Rice. Anyway, I thought
Well,
that was funny
they're
as well.
paying some of these basketball players enough to play two sports.
True.
So, let's get at it. There's another Miles from Texas Tech who's a speed slot guy. And Ryan, you saw it with IU last year. They were very one-dimensional. Defense did not play well that game. But offensively, it was throw it up to Donovan McCulley. He's either going to make a catch or you guys got a pass interference on it. So it's a much more dynamic offense this year. The running backs, you bring in 4 new running backs, Tyson Lawton, Kaleon Black, Elijah Green, and Justice Ellison. 2 of them are from JMU, from where Cignetti was from. And then Elijah Green's from UNC and Justice Ellison from Wake Forest. They're more explosive than backs than IU's had probably since Stevie Scott, and maybe even before that with Jordan Howard. They could get to the edge. They're not like burners where like Jalen Lucas, but they have better vision, and they could hit the hole quickly and turn a 5 yard run into a 20 yard run, or a 2 yard run into a 10 yard run, and that's what you want. They didn't really kick all that much, and the biggest thing is they stayed healthy. At schools like IU and Illinois, depth is a major concern, and just getting out of spring practice without a major injury is a huge win for IU. Because now you could go into summer workouts instead of rehabbing injuries. You could work on some skills and get better. Concerns for IU, obviously, the transfer portal is going to be a concern. They're looking for defensive tackles, just like every other team in the country. They're looking for big bodies up front. The one defense is pretty good. It's what's behind it. You need probably 6 people to play defensive tackle throughout the season. They're probably looking for 2 in the portal. Could use some safety help and then some O-line depth too. For the first time in a while, the offensive line, the coaches on the broadcast said that that's the unit that they're most confident in, which you couldn't have said about IU probably since Kevin Wilson was there. So that was good news. But they have 8 that they're comfortable playing. You probably want to get another 1 or 2 bodies in there as well. So it was good to see the cornerbacks as well. Kobe Minor, Jameer Johnson, who was injured last year, especially after the last 3 games of IU season where Illinois threw for a gazillion yards and Hudson Card avoided 18 sacks and threw for 300 yards in the bucket game as well. So, depth there, you probably need another guy. But, man, Aiden Fisher, linebacker from JMU, looks the part. You get Jalen Walker coming back from surgery in the fall. If you could get a couple defensive tackles, some help on the offensive line in your third group, and some safeties, this schedule sets up to be pretty nice. And if you could get the ball rolling with Cignetti, he's going to back up his talk.
Yeah, I think Indiana is a bowl team this year based off that spring game. Now, obviously, you can't come to every conclusion, but I felt like there were a lot of areas where Indiana looked better coached. They looked more prepared, not taking a shot at Tom Allen by any means. Zach and I were both pretty adamant that Tom Allen's going to make a good defensive coordinator somewhere. Lo and behold, he is at Penn State now, and their defense looked pretty good in their spring game. We were talking about that last week. So at the end of the day, I think Tom Allen's found his spot, and I think Indiana's found a guy who's going to be very good for them. And I think Curt Cignetti believes in this team that he's putting together here. So, Sammy, we had Jamie Jordan come in here and say that linebackers and cornerbacks are a strength for IU. Would you say that's the strength of the defense? And would you also point them out to be just strengths for the team overall, like you were talking about?
I'd say they were surprising strengths in the for the defense in the spring game, because you came in with a lot of questions. You lost Aaron Casey, Jacob Magnum Farrar is moving to that stud rush end position, which I think the rush end position is probably the deepest and most talented. But to have Aiden Fisher come in, run the defense, look comfortable, make tackles. Now, I don't know what Illinois did, but the spring game was IU's first time tackling all spring, which I thought was insane. Very unconventional, and IU only used 13 of their 15 allotted practices as well, which, again, coaches are always begging for more practice time. So that's kind of weird and unconventional there. Cornerbacks were surprising too. You had questions. Jameer Johnson came in last year from Texas, was hurt. If he could stay healthy, he could be a playmaker. Kobe Minor is a guy who can be your number 1 corner and stuff like that. But again, it's who's behind him. Can he stay healthy and stuff like that? But I think the running back group is probably the best group on the team.
Very cool. Very cool. Ryan, you referenced that you might have a talking point or something with Sammy a little bit earlier. Do you have any questions about the IU spring game or just this IU team overall for Sammy?
I don't know if I can. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear
We can
you.
hear you.
Okay, well, I can't hear you, but
Oh, whoops.
that's fine. So you can hear me. So then whatever I got to say, that'll go through. All right. So what I would say is, what was, even though I won't hear what you're saying, you can tell everybody else. What was your most impressive, maybe takeaways from the JMU players that you guys got from Curt? Because obviously some talented players on a pretty good team last year. Well, where did you see maybe the most, where this is going to help the team the most? I know it's a collective thing, but was it necessarily just speed, football intelligence, or maybe just talent? Where did you see that? And I'll pretend that I'm listening to you.
Yeah, just smile and nod. Well, yep, there you go. Well, there were three JMU players who didn't play this spring because of injury, and they should all project to have pretty big roles. You had Jalen Walker, who was projected to start at one of the linebacker positions. Tyler, you had Nick Kidwell, and then James Carpenter, who was all what are they in? All Sun Belt defensive tackle, who's going to be in the rotation. What stood out to me is that they showed that they can compete at that Big Ten level. Yeah, it's against IU players now, but Elijah Surratt looked the part of a Big Ten receiver. Aiden Fisher looked the part of a Big Ten linebacker. He has the size when a lot of these times these transfers from the G5 just don't have the size to play in a Power 5 or Power 4 now conference. I thought Tyshawn Lawton and Kalon Black at running back provided speed and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing that they brought is that they knew the Curt Cignetti way. They knew how to practice. They know how to run that practice. They know how to, that a lot of the people who we've talked to coaches wise and players, they get in, they do their work, and they get out, which wasn't the case under Tom Allen, where they brought players in at different times. They do media and all that stuff. So it's now you have guys at linebacker, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line. In the secondary, you got that Sean Ashbury, I think he's from ODU, looks the part of a Big Ten. He's smaller, but he looks the part of a Big Ten safety. But all those guys that came from JMU can teach the culture to those players at IU, and I think that's a huge, X factor in getting used to the coaching change.
Yeah, for sure. I think that the JMU guys are going to be really special for
Good.
Indiana this year. You're good now, Ryan?
Good. I'm good. People were calling me. I'm a one.
Tell him you're busy right now. He said, tell him you're Mr. Popular. You can't answer calls when you're on the podcast.
The Chromebook did not do what it's supposed to. It wouldn't work, so I pulled the iPhone out. So, and then people calling, and I'm like, So anyway,
that's all right.
Hopefully he gave a great answer as to the JMU players, but I mean, I think they're talented kids, obviously. Otherwise, they would.
The biggest thing, Ryan, I was saying was that they know how Curt Cignetti and that coaching staff functions, and he brought a lot. Both coordinators are from JMU, and they know the expectation, and they could teach that expectation to the players who have been at IU. That, to me, I think is the biggest deal.
Yep, and Young Bucket, very excited for Aiden Fisher this year. Aiden Fisher is that dude, he says, and I can't say that he's wrong.
I do have to talk about the specialists because this is look. I was a kicker and punter in high school. I'm gonna answer the question on the specialists. I always ask about specialists. They didn't punt. I'm not worried about James Evans punting and all that stuff. I am worried about place kicking. IU brought in a freshman last year, Nico Radicic. He didn't kick last year. He did not kick in the spring game, either extra points or field goals. That's kind of a red flag to me. Is he banged up? Is he going to the portal? They did bring in Derek McCormick from I think it was Louisiana Monroe, one of those directional Louisiana schools, missed a 52-yarder. Yeah, that's a bomb of a field goal. Had the distance, missed it wide right. But that's something that hurt IU last year was missed field goals down the stretch. They missed one against Michigan State. I think they missed one against Wisconsin. They might have. I think they had one blocked against Illinois. They might have missed one against Illinois too. But it's
had one blocked. Yeah. Yep.
It was either extra point or a field goal got blocked against Illinois. But hey, when a game goes into overtime, you need all the points that you could get.
Johnny Newton in and blocked kicks for a reason. And he saved it. He's the one who blocked the extra point.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit worried about place kicking. They didn't do kickoffs. They didn't do punts. But that to me is, hey, I'm gonna put that on my radar when we start, fall camp coverage.
Makes sense. Zach, do you have a quick question or anything for Sammy about IU before we move on?
Yeah. Quick question. You guys start with FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, Northwestern. Percentage on them getting to 6-0 in that first stretch.
Oh man. I think you could get to 4. I feel pretty good about 4. Man, the portal's going to determine whether or not you could get UCLA. Because that's a gettable game now. That's you're going on the road. It's a toss-up game, and then who's the last 6? Is it Northwestern?
No, yeah, it's at Northwestern.
I would say there's probably a 20% chance to go 6-0. Non-scientific, just
gut feel.
Gut feel 20%.
And you see that
you win all 3 non-conference games. I think you beat Maryland at home, and I think if you could get those 2 road games, you're in business for 6.
That would be awesome if Indiana went 6-0. My in-laws
would be
thrilled.
Fantastic.
I remember back in What'd you say, Ryan? Sorry.
They would no longer be a basketball school.
I don't know this sport you talk of. Women's hoops? Yeah. We're a women's hoops team, too.
There you go. You go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and move. Well, hold on. We have a few more here. Tony says, Gophers have gotten 2 redshirt freshmen out of the portal so far this spring. Any chance the Gophers go 8 to 9 wins this year? I was planning to talk about the Gophers possibly next week. I wanted to possibly bring Ali Bobble back on. Gut reaction. I think that the Gophers have done some good things in the portal. I've been impressed with them. I think they they brought in the Georgia guy, and they brought in the Clemson guy.
He's talking about I think he's talking about what he's saying is 2 4-star redshirt freshmen. One of those is the Georgia cornerback, I think.
Yes. Yeah, the Georgia cornerback is one of them. And then I can't remember if the Clemson guy was a 3-star or a 4-star, but at the end of the day, he went to Clemson. So if Clemson wants him, I think that's an elite talent. So
that schedule for Minnesota is not easy.
That was the other point I was going to bring up is it's not a great schedule the way
you're
it's
looking
up for Minnesota.
Probably 2-1 in the non-conference. You get Iowa at home. That's always a toss-up. At Michigan, we'll see what Michigan looks like. And then back-to-back weeks, you get USC at home. I don't know if the Gophers can score enough with USC. At UCLA, again, toss-up. Maryland at home. At Illinois, at Rutgers, Penn State, at Wisconsin.
Yeah,
it's doable, but if you could win. If you could beat UNC, it's doable.
Oh, for sure. Other guys from LSU. So it looks like Minnesota just taking away the SEC players. It really does help the Big Ten that when SEC players go into the portal in the spring window, they can't go to other SEC schools. That really is a huge piece for them. So Sean Garner says, Iowa QB Deacon Hill entered the portal. Yes, I saw everybody saying that an offensive lineman finally hit the portal. I wasn't going to.
I thought I was ready for a fullback joke.
or that. I was the one that said he looked
Yeah.
like a tight end, but everybody was like, "No, he's way too big for a tight end." Well, you're playing quarterback, and you're too big for a tight end. That's not great. And then Young Bucket says, his first comment was, "Never started 6-0 in program history. Closest was 5-0-1." And then he said, "Psych, went 6-9 and 67." So hey, that's
And
that'd be
we
pretty
went to the
impressive.
Rose Bowl. And guess where we're going this year? We're playing in the Rose Bowl this year. So
There you
a
go.
lot of coincidences there.
I love that.
Nice.
All right.